The following program is sponsored by CBN.
Coming up, an American emergency.
I couldn't get over how forgotten she must have felt.
Children need good homes.
A little girl slept in this room last night.
And there aren't enough to go around.
Why would you bring a child here?
Now meet a couple trying to fix that.
This was always our calling.
How they're solving the foster care crisis one house at a time.
Everything is about that child.
On today's 700 Club. Welcome to the 700 Club. 2 days after the election, we're still counting. And in the race for the White House, Joe Biden is now closer to 270 electoral votes needed to win. President Trump is down, but not yet out, with a much tighter path to victory.
The Trump campaign is now contesting vote counts in 4 battleground states. Meanwhile, protesters on both sides have taken to the streets. George Thomas reports.
All eyes are on the count in the key states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina as the nation holds its collective breath to see who wins the race for the White House. Biden got closer last night with projections that he'll win Michigan and Wisconsin, putting the Democrat challenger's electoral tally at 253 to Trump's 214. The Trump team is calling for a recount in Wisconsin. 270 electoral college votes are needed to win the presidency.
I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
The Trump campaign believes it still has a chance. The president would have to win either Arizona or Nevada and still sweep Georgia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. While the counting continues, the president's team filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, laying the groundwork for contesting battleground states' election results. In Pennsylvania, the president is leading Biden, but with large amounts of mail-in ballots yet to be counted, the Trump campaign is seeking to stop counting ballots that arrived after Election Day, claiming it's not been given proper access to observe the process.
Not a single Republican has been able to look at any one of these mail ballots.
In Michigan, Trump supporters protesting at vote-counting centers in Detroit over similar claims. Michigan's Attorney General insisting both parties have access to the counting process. Meanwhile, Republicans look poised to hold the Senate, even as Michigan's Democratic Senator Gary Peters has been declared the winner there. On Wednesday, Maine's Senate race was called for Republican incumbent Susan Collins. GOP candidates are currently leading in races still undecided in North Carolina, Alaska, and Georgia. Overnight, as votes continued to trickle in, this was the scene in Portland, Oregon, as the National Guard was called out to stop widespread violence and destruction by protesters. 11 people were arrested as authorities in the city said the protests had turned into a riot. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody is with us. And David, it looks like President Trump has a hard path forward. What are the chances of him sweeping the remaining states?
Well, Gordon, I'm going to take it like this because I've been thinking a lot about how do we relate this to everybody and just kind of dumb it down, if you will. Think of it like a football game, right? Donald Trump down by a field goal. Time is running out. He's got 4 downs, first and 10, second, third, and fourth down, right? You got 4 chances to get it in the end zone. The first chance, let's just assume he wins Georgia, North Carolina, because he's got to have those. The first chance is for him to win Pennsylvania and Nevada. If he does that, he's the president of the United States. But if he fails on first down, he goes to second down. Second down, once again, Georgia, North Carolina. Then he needs to win Pennsylvania and hope that Arizona goes back and goes into his category. And we'll talk about that if you want in a moment. That's second down. If that fails, we're at third down. Third down is a canvassing and a recount of Michigan and Wisconsin. A harder sell for sure, but that's third down. If that all fails, then, Gordon, we're in the Hail Mary stage, and that's where the Supreme Court and many of these legal lawsuits come in. And if he can potentially have a Hail Mary at the end of this thing in December, possibly, late November, that's where we could end up.
Well, the Federalist came out with a post yesterday talking about vote dumping. in Michigan, and two unusual cases. One, 130,000 votes being added into the tally, and every single one of them for Biden. Another one where a county that broke 29% to Trump 4 years ago is now breaking 30% to Biden this time. It just seems to be some unusual things happening in the vote tally. What's your take on that? Is this something that the president's legal team will pursue?
100%. They're going to pursue that, and we've heard a lot about that on Twitter. As a matter of fact, Twitter tried to. Well, I'd say we heard a lot about it on Twitter. Then it got out there, but Twitter tried to shut all of that vote dumping down. But that's a whole nother issue. But look what's happening in Pennsylvania right now. The new hanging chad could be cured ballots, C-U-R-E-D, these cured ballots. In other words, there are ballots coming into, especially down in that Philadelphia area, that either have a smudged signature or it hasn't been signed. And so what they're doing, normally those ballots would be discounted. That's not happening in Philadelphia. What they're doing is they're getting the voter, long story short, but they're bringing the voter back in to say, is this your signature? Is this correct? And then go ahead and counting the vote potentially if it does match up. Well, that sounds like, okay, that's nice to do. One vote, you have the whole vote situation there. But well, hold on for a second. The rest of the counties in Pennsylvania aren't doing that. They're not curing ballots. So you have Philadelphia County, a huge county, and Montgomery and Bucks and all that, curing ballots, but you don't have curing ballots going on in many of the rural portions of the state. That's also going to be a part of a legal contention.
Well, if it turns into a lawsuit, which it already has, it's already gone that route, then how long are we looking at before we actually have a declared winner that everyone says you won?
Well, it's going to be expedited. And what does expedited mean exactly? Look, the bottom line is this. There are laws that basically say that you have to stop counting. You have to literally stop counting all votes in America, all states, by November 23rd. Has to stop. So we know it's probably going to go on at least until November 23rd in terms of all of the ballot counting, even though we've heard North Carolina November 12th, we've heard Pennsylvania November 6th. But the bottom line is you have to literally put down the pen, the number 2 pencil, if you will, on November 23rd. At that point, you could see something maybe in late November or early December, but definitely sometime before Christmas. 2020, I tell you what, it's more of the anti-love letter from 2020 to all of us.
All right. 2020 is going to be in history as anti-love letter year. All right. The GOP, assuming it doesn't change by the end of the month, it looks like it's going to hold on to the Senate. What does that mean going forward, assuming Joe Biden wins the presidential election?
Well, at this point, if Biden becomes the next president of the United States, it's everything, Gordon. It's everything for Republicans. It will be the difference between court packing or non-court packing. In other words, there will be no court packing if Senate Republicans maintain control. And I can go on and on in terms of a list of, whether or not Supreme Court justices are nominated. There'll be more centrists. I can go on and on. Bottom line is it'll be huge. And most likely we're looking at 51-49 is my sense right now in terms of Republicans keeping control. There's another Senate race, obviously, in Georgia that has to be determined sometime in January. Gordon, I did want to mention, and this does relate to the Senate, but also to the presidential race, it's interesting to look at the electorate. I've been doing some number crunching, and you look at Donald Trump's vote of the Latino vote. He's up 4% from 2016 with Latinos across the country. He's up 4% among the black vote as well. But he is down 2% in the non-college white educated voter. And if you go into Michigan and Wisconsin, you see those numbers even more. He's down about 2 or 3%. Look, Gordon, right there. That's game, set, match if Joe Biden becomes president. We'll see.
All right. Well, Republicans, sort of against all odds, the only one I heard saying this was John Waggy, that they were going to pick up seats in the House. Is there hand-wringing on the Democrat side in terms of they were predicting it? They thought they would get the supermajority, and then Republicans were predicting it, but it looks like the GOP added seats and the Democrats lost. What does that mean?
Well, that's right. I mean, look, it looks like Democrats obviously are going to continue. Well, they'll have control of the House. But you're right. What happened to the blue wave? I mean, John Waggy was correct. I mean, there was not a blue wave. And indeed, there's going to be a few House seats picked up by Republicans. They can actually go more than just +2 or 3. It could be a lot more than that. And they're doing well in Orange County, the OC out in California. Some of the districts they lost to Democrats in 2018, they're starting to pick some of those up. So bottom line is, Nancy Pelosi is under a considerable amount of pressure now in terms of her leadership at this point. There's a movement by centrists, if there are such a thing in the Democrat Party, but there are. I guess, at this point, centrists are still to the left, but, the bottom line is Nancy Pelosi could be in a bit of trouble. We'll see. It's something to bear watching.
Okay. When do you predict the 2024 election cycle will start?
I'll be honest with you. It started at the Republican National Convention about a couple of months ago when Nikki Haley was on stage and Mike Pence was on stage, and there were others as well. This has already begun. But in true earnest, I mean, in answer to your question, let me think. Maybe in about 2 to 3 months. I mean, it's going to start right away. And the odds-on favorite, do you like how I'm already starting with the odds-on favorite? The odds-on favorite, obviously people will put Mike Pence there, but you got to watch Nikki Haley. Those would be the two to beat. I'm already talking 4 years ago. I can't even I'm in an electoral coma at this point.
All right. Well, it seems like the cycles never end. And the good news, it gives you a lot of job security, David.
Good point, Gordon. Glad to hear that from you, by the way.
All right. Well, David, thanks for being with us. Well, we talked about the city of Philadelphia and how crucial they are to the vote count on the election, but here's another story coming out of the city. They are calling out a Catholic foster care agency because they say they would refer same-sex couples to another agency if they wanted to adopt. Well, the Supreme Court has heard this religious liberty case, and as Paul Strand reports, it has far-reaching implications.
Catholic Social Services never actually had a same-sex married couple asked to foster a child through the agency.
There are dozens of foster agencies that are available to serve gay couples in the city of Philadelphia, and there's no evidence that any gay couple has ever even tried to use CSS as its agencies.
But just the idea that it would turn them away was enough for Philadelphia to boot Catholic Social Services out of the foster care business in the city.
We stand ready to provide loving homes for children in need, but our ministry is stuck on the sidelines.
Philadelphia argued it has every right to do that.
The government has broad powers to impose conditions on contractors like CSS that stand in the government's shoes performing government functions.
Here, the city is reaching out and telling a private religious ministry, which has been doing this work for 2 centuries, how to run its internal affairs, and trying to coerce it to make statements that are contrary to its religious beliefs.
That's why this is a religious liberty case. Philadelphia was basically demanding the agency give up its biblically based belief about marriage to do work with the city.
Or as Justice Alito put it,
the city can't stand the message that Catholic Social Services and the Archdiocese are sending by continuing to adhere to the old-fashioned view about marriage. Isn't that the case?
The statements that have been made by various officials make clear that the reason they're doing that is because they view this as some sort of odious anachronism.
A foster mom in this case said Philadelphia is harming children who need families.
It felt like I had been kicked in the stomach the day I learned the city was closing down Catholic Social Services foster program, despite a severe shortage of foster families.
Even as they legalized same-sex marriage a few years ago, the justices warned many religious believers would have to be protected because their beliefs about homosexuality aren't just personal opinions, they're determined by their holy scriptures. Now it's time to see if the justices themselves will protect those beliefs. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
I want you to remember what that lawyer for the city of Philadelphia said, an odious anachronism. That's how he views Christianity and how he views a Bible-based view of marriage. He called it an odious anachronism in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. This is not an isolated case. Look at what happened in New York City, where Samaritan's Purse said we want to volunteer, we want to have Christian doctors and Christian workers come to Manhattan. and help deal with the coronavirus outbreak and be able to take patients and treat them. We're not going to discriminate against anyone. If you've got the virus, we want to help you. We want to help the medical system there. We all saw the reports. We all saw the overcrowding. But here, a single city councilman said, well, because you don't allow homosexuals, active homosexuals, to be on your staff, we think you're discriminating, and so we want to make sure that that never happens, and we're going to station watchers over what you do. And then he had some kickers that there aren't any Christians in New York City anymore, and we don't want you. So this is where our culture is going. And here's another fact to consider in the city of Philadelphia case. There's not a single gay couple that ever applied to Catholic services for adoption. It's completely made up by the city. The city is saying, because you're Catholic, because you're Christian, because you believe in traditional marriage, you're not going to be part of our foster care system. And we don't care that there's a lot of foster kids that need foster parents. We're going to exclude all of them. And we don't want you in here, even though you've been doing this for now 200 years. These are incredible cases. Where our country is going is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It's like we've lost all common sense. Whatever happened to freedom of religion? Whatever happened to Congress shall pass no law? Here, the city of Philadelphia is trying to pass a law that is openly discriminating against a Christian organization. We'll await what the Supreme Court says, but realize these things are very important, and what these justices decide as to whether or not this is religious discrimination is going to affect every single city in the United States. Terry?
Well, up next, it's like a 9/11 against Christians every year. 3,000 murdered for their faith. What countries are the worst offenders, and what's being done to protect believers? Plus, picture a blank room, nothing on the walls, certainly no beds or pillows. That's where thousands of children will lay their heads down tonight. See how one family's giving these foster kids a home. That's later on today's show.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below.
Tomorrow.
Started getting really sick.
Uncontrollable pain.
A lot of vomiting, a lot of diarrhea.
And a rush to the ER.
It was so severe, and I was losing so much blood.
For a condition with no cure.
He and I think both thought that I was dying.
One woman's agony.
It was terrible. It was the hardest part of my life, for sure.
And miraculous healing. Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Stay connected with CBN News all day across our platforms.
Executions, genocide, torture, unimaginable suffering worldwide. 260 million Christians are persecuted for their faith each day. Last year alone, almost 3,000 died. In 2020, Christians face more danger than ever before. Gary Lane takes us to some of the most perilous places on earth to follow Christ.
Happening.
We are hearing terrible stories every day.
They broke my ribs and they kicked us out of their house.
The execution of 11 Christians.
This is a genocide.
We need protection from the world.
Allahu Akbar.
Around the world each day, 260 million Christians suffer for their faith, and the persecution is steadily getting worse. 2,983 Christians died for faith-related reasons last year. Nearly 9,500 churches were attacked.
North Korea tops the Open Doors watch list of worst offending countries.
There are 60,000 Christians in labor camps for owning a Bible, and many of them die there.
The North Korean government doesn't just arrest you if you're found to be a Christian. They arrest your parents. They arrest your children. They want to completely wipe out even the idea of a different God than the Kim family.
In neighboring China, Christians say they face the worst persecution since Chairman Mao's Cultural Revolution. And high-tech surveillance, including facial recognition software, is part of the communist government's effort to limit Christian activities. Voice of the Martyrs radio host Todd Nettleton says Beijing's goal is to place 600 million active surveillance cameras around the country by the end of this year.
If you think about trying to deliver Bibles, or you think about trying to meet secretly, how are you going to do that when the government is literally watching everything you do?
Open Doors President David Curry agrees.
China is building what I think is a blueprint, a roadmap of persecution for other regimes around the world. And they're doing it with surveillance, with a social score that measures Christian behavior, attending church, taking your kids to Sunday school, as a negative thing.
Elsewhere, Islamic extremism is a major driver behind persecution of Christians, and it's not slowing down. In fact, Curry says it's intensifying, particularly in a region of Africa known as the Sahel. It's a sub-Saharan collection of countries from the west coast of Africa all the way to Eritrea on the east coast.
They don't recognize borders. They want to set up a caliphate in Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and now in Burkina Faso. So they're looking to spread out from northern Nigeria.
And because of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other Islamic extremists, Christianity in Iraq and Syria is on the verge of disappearing. Prior to the fall of Saddam Hussein, nearly 1.5 million Christians called Iraq home, and more than 1 million lived in Syria prior to war there. Today, no more than 250,000 Christians live in each country. But as those numbers dwindle in Syria and Iraq, Christianity is expanding in Iran, maybe faster than anywhere in the world.
And hopefully we understand these are our family members. These are our brothers and sisters. So if they're suffering, if there's something I can do to help, I want to do that.
At the urging of the United States, 27 nations have formed a new religious freedom alliance to combat worldwide persecution. But will it be enough? Nettleton, Curry, and others say it's time for the American church to wake up and make the suffering of global Christians a top priority. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, the current administration has made it a top priority. Mike Pence in particular, this has been something that has been very close to his heart and something he's absolutely dedicated to. But you look at the prior administration under the Obama administration, that picture we just saw of the men in orange jumpsuits on the beach. Every one of them was executed, but Barack Obama wanted to claim that, well, they were just contract workers. They weren't executed because they were Christians. They were just contract workers. In Iraq, under ISIS, former Secretary of State John Kerry refused to call it a genocide. He refused for years to call it a genocide, even though it was quite clear it was a genocide against the Yazidis and against the Christians. ISIS was intentionally wiping out ancient Christian communities, ancient Yazidi communities, and doing so both for religious reasons and for ethnic reasons, and they were engaging in genocide. John Kerry refused to do it. He finally did it in the last year of the administration. And the reason is, once you declare a genocide, then certain things happen from a statutory standpoint, and certain things have to then be the appropriate U.S. response in order to stop it. And that went against the administration's policy. They wanted to withdraw all troops from Iraq. If you declare it's a genocide, you can't do that. So you look at these things and, you know, why would an administration turn a blind eye to quite obvious Christian persecution? Why would they insist on a different narrative and insist on something that is quite clearly anti-Christian? It's been a long time since we've heard the word Christendom by a world leader. You literally have to go back to Winston Churchill in World War II, where he said, I'm defending Christendom, I'm defending freedom, I'm defending a Christian way of viewing the world against a brutal regime. And we need to recapture that. How can America be a beacon to the earth if we give up on our ideals? if we say we're not about democracy, we're not about freedom of religion, we're not about protecting minorities of whatever religious faith. We want to stand up to genocide. We want to stand up to persecution. I remind every political leader around the world, under the UN, you have a Declaration of Universal Human Rights. Eleanor Roosevelt was key in making sure that was part of it. But part of the Declaration of Universal Human Rights is freedom of religion, is freedom of conscience, is freedom of speech. We need to have these liberties if we're ever going to declare that we're free. So whether it's in communist China, whether it's in Hindu India, whether it's in any of the Muslim countries, if there isn't true religious freedom, the UN needs to fight for that. And the U.S. needs to be a beacon of hope around the world that we stand with you. We want to make sure you have the freedom to believe whatever you want to believe. It's a core principle of our great democracy, and we need to adhere to it. Terry?
Well, up next, a home away from home. These parents are giving foster children a safe place to live. What God-given idea helped to make it happen, and how is it sweeping the country? You'll see for yourself after this.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below.
Dear God, please help kids who don't have warm beds and blankets, who don't feel good and want to get better. And help mommies and daddies to find something to eat for their kids. Not just on Happy Thanksgiving Day, but every day. And please, God, help me.
During this season of giving thanks, you can also give to those in need. Please consider donating to CBN what you would normally spend on a Thanksgiving meal to help hurting people here at home and around the world. Because you can make a difference every day in the lives of those who need it most. Please give now.
Be a part of it. Be a part of what we're doing to help people. There's a new term we're having. It's called food insecurity. What that really means is people going hungry. And in this pandemic, we've got job insecurity. We have people that have lost their jobs. And there are people wondering, well, how do I make things work? And how do I put food on the table? We want to be there for them. Through you, if you're a member of the 700 Club, you are responsible for giving 37 million pounds of food right here in America. You can be a part of it, and there's a family tradition I grew up with. Dad was always insistent at Thanksgiving and at Christmas that we spent time thinking about others, that it wasn't about just the gifts that we would get or the big turkey dinner we would have. And one of the traditions was whatever money we're going to spend on our holiday meals, and whether that's Thanksgiving, whether that's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, whatever that sum of money is, well, let's set aside an equal sum so that others could have. So I encourage you, join with that tradition. It's a wonderful thing where you give to others. And the Bible is quite clear. It's better to give than it is to receive. So on Thanksgiving, let's make sure giving is part of our celebration. So set aside whatever the sum is. You can send it to us. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. You can also write to us, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. And the website's available as well. There's a donation page. And just say you want to make a special gift. What I'm going to spend for my family on Thanksgiving dinner, I want to set aside an equal sum so that others could have during this holiday season. Do it now. 1-800-700-7000. Terry?
What are you going to do That's the question that confronted Rhonda Paulson after she and her husband Corey witnessed the brutal reality of the foster care system. So what did they do about it? You're about to find out.
Hey, I'm Corey Paulson.
And I'm Rhonda Paulson. When we were taking our classes to become foster parents, on week 7, they had us take a field trip to a Department of Children's Services. And so we're sitting in this conference room, and it's state-issued furniture, blank walls, no color, no warmth. And the gentleman leading the class said that when a child is removed from their home, they come here. And I just kept looking around that room, and I thought, why would you bring a child here? And so I thought, I bet he's confused. And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but when you say a child comes here, like, what do you actually mean? And he said, a little girl slept in this room last night. I couldn't get over how forgotten she must have felt. And God had never forgotten her. I don't know what else was said. I couldn't get it together. And then I heard God say, these are my children. What are you going to do? The caseworker said there's a 9-month-old little boy that needs a home. And we didn't know if Isaiah needed a mom and a dad for a month or 6 months or 2 years, but he needed one. And we could offer that for him.
And he brought so much excitement into the house. And I could see my kids working together and putting him to sleep and reading him stories. And it was so fun to have that kind of energy in the house.
And I feel like God pursued me from that moment on. In January of 2017, I finally said yes. And I remember I just broke down and I said, I don't know what you want me to do, but I will do it.
We start going through the book of Isaiah. It's in the first chapter, in verse 17, where we read the words, defend the cause of the fatherless. It just hit us like a ton of bricks, like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what we have to do.
Yeah. So in January of 2017, that's when the dream really started to take shape. That's when we started to understand that this dream was an Isaiah 117 house. And that was really the beginning. We opened our first home in 2018. My wish for children on that day of removal, I want them to know that they are loved. We want every part of their visit to an Isaiah 117 house to be basically the exact opposite as if they went to a DCS office, in the fact that everything says you're not in trouble, you are loved. And so from the colors to the fluffy furniture that we choose, to any toy in the house is yours if you want it, everything is about that child. We want them to know that they're worth it, that they are that loved, that they deserve. And we also want them to leave with items they've chosen, items that were their favorite, and items that are now theirs. And we believe there's dignity in that.
They leave with a bag full of a few days worth of clothes and some new shoes and toiletries and things like that that they might need for their own hygiene and things like that, so the foster family doesn't have to run out the next morning.
35 states have reached out, wanting an Isaiah 117 house, 2 countries. We have over 20 expansions. We're in Indiana, Tennessee. We've now entered Georgia. And it just keeps going. And all of it reminds me, first and foremost, how big our God is. There is a foster care crisis happening in this nation. And until God's people stand up, it will continue. Because this was always our calling. Isaiah and Eli, and I'll look at one of them and say, I'm so thankful that I get to be your mama. And Isaiah 1:19 says, if you are willing and obedient, you will taste the best of the land. And we both believe wholeheartedly that those 2 little boys, our family that's now a party of 6, that is the best of the land. We are getting to experience the best of the land.
There is a foster care crisis. They are correct, and none of us should be comfortable with that fact. It can be changed. It can be done. If you'd like to find out more about Corey and Rhonda's ministry, you can visit their website, Isaiah117house.com. Do something to make a difference. Gordon?
Well, still ahead, brain dead with no heartbeat. How did a band of angels come to this infant's rescue? Meet a miracle baby coming up.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below.
And welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News break. For the first time since the pandemic hit America, our nation recorded more than 100,000 new coronavirus cases in one day. Johns Hopkins University puts the number of new infections at 102,831 Wednesday. The number of deaths topped 1,000, but that was down from the day before. Hospitalizations are also up in many states. There is good news on the vaccine front. AstraZeneca's CEO announcing its shot could be ready for large-scale vaccinations as early as this year. Residents in South Florida should be on alert for stormy weather next week. Eta, the storm that ravaged Central America after landing as a Category 4 hurricane, could head back into the Caribbean, where it might regain strength and make its way north over Cuba, possibly reaching Florida early Monday morning as a tropical storm, bringing damaging winds and heavy rains, as well as flooding. We'll be sure to keep an eye on that. I want to remind you, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Gordon and Terry are back with more of today's 700 Club. It's coming up right after this.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below.
One cup of beans. That's all the food Maria had left to feed herself and her 4 children. She lost her job as a housekeeper because of the COVID pandemic. So with no way to support her family, Maria became desperate.
I am a single mother of 4. My children depend on me.
Even before the COVID-19 outbreak, Maria struggled to find enough work to put food on the table for her children.
Because of the epidemic, all work stopped. No one will hire me as a housekeeper. They say they are afraid I will infect them if I go into their homes.
With no work, Maria was growing desperate.
There was a day when I was down to my last cup of beans. I was afraid to use up the last of our food. My children went to bed hungry.
With nowhere to turn, Maria began to pray.
The next morning, I got up at 4 a.m. and prayed to the Lord.
Soon after that, Operation Blessing came to her community with bags of food for Maria and other families suffering from the economic impact of the COVID pandemic. Maria's children raced to meet us as we helped her carry 2 bags of groceries to her home near the distribution site. Now she and the kids will have enough food for at least a month, and will continue to help Maria and others until their economies reopen.
I thank the people who support Operation Blessing for providing this food for us. You thought of us when we needed it the most. May God bless you.
That God bless you goes to you if you're a member of the 700 Club. If you're not a member, I invite you to join with us. We're doing so many things right here at home and around the world to help people in the middle of this pandemic. So many people need our help, and we want to be there for them. They're praying, they're asking God, please send relief, and we want to be the hands of God extended to them to say, here, your prayers have been answered. We want to provide for you in your time of need. If you want to join with that, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to be a member of the 700 Club. How much is that? Well, it's $20 a month. That breaks out to 65 cents a day. Some of you can join 700 Club Gold, which is $40 a month. We also have 1,000 Club. That's $84 a month. at whatever level. Do it now. 1-800-700-7000. Now, when you call and say, I want to be a member, I've got something for you. It's called the Name of God. It's a wonderful teaching about how the name of God is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and they are saved. And it'll give you real life stories of people who've cried out to God in their need, whether it was a need for healing or provision or protection. And the name of God came through for them. It'll encourage your faith. It'll give you tools where you can cry out to God too. You can find that His name is a shelter for you. Want you to have it. It's yours when you join the 700 Club. 1-800-700-7000. Terry?
Well, crying out to God is what this next story is all about. Up next, a desperate mother cries out for her brain-dead newborn. How do angels rush to the rescue, and why are doctors calling her baby an absolute miracle? You'll find out after this.
The Name of God, a new teaching from Gordon Robertson.
The name of the Lord is a strong tower.
Gain important insights into the protection available to you in the name of God. Discover how God is our healer, our provider, and the one who gives us peace. Plus, see exciting true stories of God's providence in the lives of real people.
You get the answer to everything, and that answer will never leave you.
The Name of God, available now.
Shelby Mann was born with no heartbeat. For 24 minutes, hospital staff performed CPR on this newborn. They finally got a pulse. Then shortly after, doctors declared Shelby was brain dead. Still, her mother continued to pray for a miracle, and soon, angels in the ICU went into action.
We were all excited. It was just like a big day. I worked in the emergency room at that hospital, so everybody down there knew that I was there, and we were all just kind of waiting on the big moment.
At the end of an uneventful pregnancy, Sarah Mann was ready to deliver her second child. In the hospital while waiting to be induced, Sarah lost a lot of blood. Then the baby's heartbeat suddenly disappeared from the monitor.
She couldn't find the heartbeat, and at that point I was starting to get a little nervous because I had oxygen on, and they weren't seeming to find what they were looking for.
Her husband Jason was waiting outside when a flurry of activity swarmed Sarah's room.
When I seen the doctor go running into the room, I followed him. I just remember him telling the nurses, get her to the OR, got to do an emergency C-section now.
Sarah had a complete placental abruption. The placenta had separated from the uterus before delivery, depriving the baby of blood and oxygen. Doctors were able to deliver the baby via C-section, but the baby had suffocated in the womb and had no heartbeat.
She lost like 3/4, half of her blood volume, and I had lost a significant amount of blood. We both would have died.
Medical staff performed CPR on baby Shelby for 24 minutes before finally getting a heartbeat. Because so much time had passed without oxygen, doctors were not hopeful for her survival.
First doctor that I got to talk to after a couple of hours, he told me that Shelby was brain dead. There was no brain activity, probably wouldn't live over 36 hours, and if she did live, she would be a vegetable. That was pretty rough. I mean, there's nothing you can even say to that. I mean, that's just terrible.
In a desperate plea for Shelby's life, Sarah and Jason asked for prayer from their church, family, and co-workers.
I talk to God every day, and I feel like if something's out of our hands, who else can I turn to? He has the ultimate plan. So immediately, that's the first thing that we thought to do, was to pray to God to intervene in this.
Shelby had a weak heart, a collapsed lung, and no brain activity. Medical staff cooled her body to prevent more organ damage, but days later there was still no change in her condition or prognosis.
I watched one doctor trying to get a response from her He was poking her in the eye. They couldn't get any kind of reflexes. They finally hooked her up to an EEG, and there was no brain activity.
She was a perfect baby, and she was a healthy baby, and then she had this injury, and now she's gonna be an injured baby. And that's really hard, because I think how horrible to have this long-term, whatever problems it may be, because of one moment, you know? And she could have been perfectly healthy.
On the fourth night, Sarah got out of bed and went down on her knees and prayed like never before.
I wanted her to live. He knew that. But that if she was gonna live, I wanted her to be healed completely and not have, you know, all these problems that they were telling me that we were facing. And that if she wasn't gonna live, I wanted him to just go ahead and let her go.
As she prayed, Sarah says she had a vision of angels holding baby Shelby and handing her one to another.
And I remember thinking, like, she's just been healed. I just knew it like that. And I was so at peace. I was like, a flood of peace came over me. I knew everything was gonna be fine. It was like, that was my answer.
The next day brought confirmation of what she had seen in her vision the night before, as Shelby woke from her vegetative state, healed.
Specialty after specialty came by during the day, and it was good news, good news, good news, good news, all day long. She was healed, and I knew it. And I didn't really care after that, like they wanted to do testing. I was like, go ahead, but I know what it's gonna show. And it was right every time.
One doctor, he told us, he said, there is absolutely nothing that we have done that has fixed this baby. He said, this is absolutely a miracle from God. He said, there's no explanation. He said, God had to heal this baby.
Shelby was released from the hospital just over a week later, completely healed. That was over 4 years ago. Sarah and Jason say they are thankful God heard their prayers and gave them a miracle.
She's absolutely a miracle. She really is. There's no neuro deficits or anything. I mean, she's completely normal.
She's the perfect little 4-year-old. You couldn't ask for her to be any different.
God does hear when we're praying to him. It could have went a different way, but you know, I feel like he listened to me and he did that for me, so I'm thankful for that.
There's no convincing me that there's no God or God doesn't do miracles. He does miracles. I got a 4-year-old running around here to prove it.
He does miracles. I've got a 4-year-old running around to prove it. Echoes with the blind man, a man born blind. Jesus healed his eyes. No one had ever seen that before. It had never happened before here, a man born blind. And the religious authorities wanted to dispute it. You know, who did this? How did this happen? All of this. And it's one of the greatest declarations. Once I was blind, and now I see. It's definitive proof. Where doctors say, we don't know how this happened. This had to be God. It wasn't us. These are the evidences. These are the signs and wonders that show God is with us. Now, how do you get a miracle? How do you get it? Parts of this story remind me of a story from the Old Testament where the prophet is saying, you know, we're going to be fine. His servant says, don't you see? We're outnumbered. And he prays a very simple prayer. Lord, open his eyes. And immediately he was able to see the flaming chariots all around. He was able to see the angels. Open your eyes to the greatness of the power that God has towards us who believe. When you see it, when you hear it, when you understand it with your heart, just as that wonderful mother understood it in her heart, she had a vision of it. She saw her baby being passed from angel to angel, and from that point forward, it wasn't a guessing game. She knew. And that certainty, that substance, that evidence, no matter what was going to happen from that point forward, she knew her baby was healed. May your eyes be open. May that prayer of Paul, that your eyes of your understanding will be open. May your ears be open. May you have a heart that understands the greatness of his power. When you have these things, faith gets very easy. Faith gets very tangible. Faith gets very substance-filled. You can have this. All you have to do is ask for it. Now, Terry and I are going to ask with you. Before we ask, we have some other miracles to encourage you to believe God is in the miracle business. Here's Nancy from South Carolina. Back when she was 15, she was thrown from a horse. She landed on her back on top of a log. Her back has never been the same. She's now 69 years young and watching the 700 Club. And Terry said, someone with an injury from horse riding, an injury with your tailbone and spine, really impacted your life. God is healing that for you right now, at this very moment. Lift up your hands and receive it. Well, Nancy started believing God. She felt a tingling in her back after the short prayer, and 54 years, all pain gone. Wow. Hallelujah.
God is good. Well, this is William. He lives in La Follette, Tennessee. He suffered with arthritis in his back. And while watching this program, Gordon, you said, you can't lay your hand on the middle of your back. You've tried to, but you can't reach it. And you wonder if God can see you. He sees you and called you by name. You just felt his touch go into your spine. Begin to do what you couldn't do before. Move your back around, move your shoulders, and realize that pain is completely gone and will never return. William excitedly called our prayer line later and reported he is completely healed.
Let's pray. Let's believe, and let's let God do what he's really good at, miracles. Lord, we lift the needs of the audience to you for anyone that has pain, for anyone that has infirmity. And Lord, specifically for anyone with a back problem right now. You heard the story of the horseback riding. You heard the story of William. May your back be healed now. May all that pain in your spine leave you now. All constriction and movement, everything associated with your spine be straightened now in Jesus' name. May you be healed now. Lift your hands to him. Receive that blessing into your back right now in the name of Jesus. There's someone, you've got a right kidney problem, deep infection in it. God's healing you. Terry, God's given you something.
Cysts, many different people struggling with cysts behind the ear, under the armpit, and just the lining of your stomach. God is releasing you from all of that right now. You are healed in Jesus' name.
Many miracles are happening right now. Give us a call and give us your report. Here it is. Ask and you will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you.
I've been struggling for many years with diverticulosis. Finances are tight, bills piling up. It was a struggle. I need help. I'm not going to make it if I don't get help.
A neighbor told Barb about Operation Blessing partner Beist Community Assistance Center.
Load my trunk, and that's a huge relief for me. I'm just truly, truly thankful for Operation Blessing and Beist. They know what we're going through and what we need. I don't feel like I would have survived. It's not just the food that they provide, but also friendship and prayer and hope. They give us hope.
People around the world need your help. When you partner with CBN, you rescue children and adults from despair, and you give them a promising future. Please watch for this mailing and remember to send in your pledge. When we all come together to help, miracles happen.